Hello guys, welcome to this Shufflefish Studios tutorial. What we're going to be looking at today is a Maya modeling technique known as curve networking. Curve networking is a way of using curves to lay out a base skeleton for your model, and then you apply the geometry to the skeleton afterwards. Curve network is not the most popular way of modelling. You may have seen it about, you may not have seen it about. I've actually searched online for a few tutorials and I haven't really found any. In my opinion, it's best used for modelling vehicles, props. It can be used for anatomy and character modelling, but it's probably not the best way to go about modelling anything organic. So for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to assume you know how to lay out image planes in Maya. If you don't, there'll be a link in the description box to a really good Maya image plane tutorial, and there'll also be a link to a website called theblueprints.com, which is where I get all of my images. They have an amazing database of blueprints and vector drawings of just about whatever you can think of. It's free to register, you just sign up and then you have full access to the whole database. So yeah, really good website. Anyway, let's get started. I'm just going to jump straight into the top view. And I'm using a car for my tutorial, but you can use whatever you want. And in the polygon shelf, over here on the top left, we're going to go into the Create submenu and go to CV Curve Tool. And you'll notice the cursor's changed to a crosshair type of thing. And we literally just select the line we want to follow and just left click to start creating anchor points. So I'm just going to follow this line of the windshield. Once you've reached the end of your line, you just press the return key on the keyboard and that finishes up your curve. Now you don't have to be super accurate when laying out anchor points, because you can always right click and go to control vertex, and then you can just select them anchor points, use the moving manipulator over here on the left or W on the keyboard, and you can just go in and refine that shape. So I'm just going to pull these two down a bit and then right click, go back into object mode. Now as you can see, the curve is laid out in the correct position in the top view, but if we go into the front view, you can see it's still a straight line. So we're going to right click and go into control vertex again, and we're just going to begin positioning the anchor points in this view now. So just select and drag using the move manipulator. It is quite a time consuming process laying out your curves, but in the long run it will save you a lot of time when coming to the actual modelling phase. So there we go. Go back into object mode and we can see in perspective just how that curve's laid out. That's the windshield. If you want, you can go into the side view and just refine it a bit in there. So maybe just drag these down a bit. And that's looking fairly good. So I'm just going to go ahead and create some more curves. Create CV Curve Tool. And I think I'm going to follow this line of the door here. So again, left click to create your anchor points. And just follow that line all the way. And then when you get to the end of the line, hit the return key and that'll finalize your curve. Once you have it laid out in one view, just switch to the other view. I think I'll try the side one for this one. Just move it into starting position, following this line here. Right click, control vertex, and then just as before, move them anchor points to position the curve. It does take a bit of practice, but it does sort of become like a workflow. So creating a curve, refining the curve, switching angles and doing the same in another viewport. So finish up this curve here. Bring that back. Bring this one down just a touch. And if I go into perspective view, you can see how that curve's laid out now. 3D space. You can already see the roof and doors all already just taking shape after just 2 curves. So I'm just going to go and lay out the curves for, let's try the door. So create CV curve tool, and we're just going to follow this line of the door around. If you make a mistake with your anchor points, like this for example, just press backspace on the keyboard and it will delete the last created anchor point. And then hit return, finalize, and then move into position in another view. What you're going to see here is quite a common, not problem, but it's a bit of a tricky situation to be in. If I go into control vertex, you can see that this curve has a row of top vertices and bottom vertices, and in the top view you just cannot tell which ones are top and bottom. So what I like to do in this sort of situation is select the anchor points in the perspective and then just go back into the top view and move them into position, just so I know that I'm selecting the vertices I want to position and not the ones on the bottom. It may only happen a few times. It's just to get the correct positioning, because the more accurate your curve network is, the more accurate your model's going to be. Another good thing to remember when curve networking is, well, just modelling in general, to be honest, is just gather so many reference images of what it is you're modelling. So for example, when modelling this car, I've got a folder with literally pictures of it from every angle, close-ups of the wheels, the lights. It's always good to have a bunch of reference and not rely too much on the image planes. So that's all fully laid out. Back into object mode, you can see that curve laid out. I think we're ready to jump onto the next major part of curve networking, and that is snapping the curves together. When creating a curve network, you don't really want any gaps in the curve network, like these little gaps here or here. You want all 3 of these curves to be snapped to one point. So the way to do that is select a curve, right click again and go into control vertex, select that first anchor point, and we're going to use this little button up here which is snap to curves, or you can use the C key on your keyboard, and when you hold down C you'll see the manipulator change from a square to a circle, and that just means that the snapping to curves is active. So holding C, your middle mouse button, click and drag towards the curve you want to snap to, and then still holding C, your middle mouse button on the actual curve you want to snap to, and then drag, and you'll see it snaps along that curve. So we're just going to do the same for this one. So right click, control vertex, select the starting anchor point, hold down C on the keyboard, middle mouse drag towards the curve you want to snap to, and then still holding C, middle mouse on the actual curve, and you'll see it snapping. The reason I moved the anchor point towards the curve I'm going to snap to is because Maya gets pretty temperamental. The curve's too far away and it starts snapping to the wrong curve, so it's just to make your life a bit easier. But that's the laying out curve section of the tutorial. I'm going to finish off a bit more of this network and I'll come back and show you how to apply polys to the curve network. Yo, welcome back. Here you can see I've laid out a few more curves to my curve network. I've added curves for the front bonnet and the front fender. Also got the wheel arch, a couple curves laying out the windows, and I've also got this curve running straight down the middle. This is a pretty important curve, not just to get the overall shape of the model, but also so you can mirror along it later on. But in this part I'm just going to show you how to apply polygons to the curve network and snap them onto the curves to get the shape. So in the polygon drop down menu, we're going to go into mesh, and select create polygon tool, and you're going to see again that the cursor's changed to a crosshair, and it's literally just the same as the curves. You left click to draw anchor points. One important thing to remember when using the create polygon tool is to always work counterclockwise, and that's so your normals are always facing outwards. If you have normals facing inwards, it does cause problems later along the line with things such as UV mapping and texturing. So we're just going to left click on the main parts of the door. 4 points should do it, and once you finish drawing out your shape, again just hit return, and you'll see if I press 5, there's your polygon shape. Now it's obviously not in the right angle, so what we're going to do is right click on the polygon and go into the vertex mode. I'm going to select this vertex here, and again using the move manipulator, W on the keyboard, and then holding down C again, middle mouse button, just going to drag it over towards where we want to snap it to. Just like snapping curves to curves, this is snapping verts to curves. And then middle mouse button on the curve we want to snap to, and just drag, and you'll see it's snapping. Zoom in on that, you can see that vert is snapped to that point there of that curve. So we're just going to do that for all the verts. So again, holding down C, middle mouse button, move it towards where you want to snap it, and then still holding C, middle mouse click, and drag, and you see it's snapping along that curve. Just going to do that all the way around. Snap, hold C, and snap. Now you can see it's in a bit better position, but it's still not taking on the full shape of the door, and that is just because there's not enough verts in the shape to mould that poly. So we're going to go into edit mesh this time and use the insert edge loop tool, and it does do exactly where it inserts edge loop. So if you just click on an edge and drag, you can insert that edge loop wherever you want. So we're just going to add in a few along that axis and along this axis. What that does is, if you go back into vertex mode, you see you have a lot more verts to play with now. So again, we're just going to select these newly created verts, move manipulator, and just go back to snapping to the curves. When using more verts, it is always important to try and keep the edge flow as clean as possible, and that just means basically try and keep all the faces roughly the same shape and size. Just snap all these verts together. And already you'll see how much easier this is than modelling off head. It's because you have the curves to snap to. You've already laid out the basic shape. And there we go. You can now see that shape's taking on the shape of the door pretty well there. Now all we need to do is just select the inner verts and just mould them a bit. Bring them out. Just play around with them until you get the shape you was looking for. Bring this one out a bit. This is probably the trickiest bit, and that's where your reference material comes in very handy, your source images, just so you can tell roughly what sort of shape you're looking for. You could always add more curves in to get the curvature of the door if you wanted to. I tend to try and keep my curve network as simple as possible. Let's bring these two out, we should be good to go. Now that's fairly rough. If I go into object mode and hit it with a smooth preview, which is 3 on the keyboard, you see it's not looking too bad. Looking pretty nice. So I'm just going to show you that again, this time on the bonnet. I'm just going to hide my image plane so I can get in there. And mesh, create polygon tool, and just draw on where you want them verts to go. It's always best to try and keep it four-sided because you will add the edge loops in afterwards. Maya doesn't like 3 and 5-sided shapes, so I'm going to go back into vertex mode. Just snap these verts to the curve. So holding down C, middle mouse button, drag towards the curve on snap to, and then still holding C, middle mouse on the actual curve, click and drag. And now, edit mesh, insert edge loop tool, and just draw on them edge loops so you can refine the shape of the poly. Right click again, vertex mode, and then it's just simply snapping them newly created verts. Can be a bit fiddly, takes patience. May need a few more edge loops in there after. Get these verts all snapped up first. So holding C, middle mouse button, click and drag on the curve. So now, just gonna finish snapping these ones actually, forgot about them. And now it's all about just refining the shape. Vertex mode. And you can always switch to your orthographic views for this. Hit 5. Just bring them up a bit. Obviously you have a lot more time to refine the shape. Turn these image planes off, they really do get in the way sometimes. And then just, you see any that you haven't snapped, just go ahead and snap them in place. I'm just going to quickly add in a few more edge loops. So insert edge loop tool, set a few more down here so I can get that snapped. A bit of a problem vert over here. Zoom in. There we go, nice and snapped. So if I just select this row of verts here, move these up slightly, and then go back to object mode and do a smooth preview with the 3 key. You can see that's beginning to take shape as well, along with the door. And that's where I'm going to leave the tutorial. Any questions, just post me a comment and I'll see if I can give you an answer. Comment, rate, subscribe. There'll be a lot more tutorials coming. The next one will be advanced curve networking, so I'll go into more depth on how to use curve networking for different things. So yeah, see you again soon. Thanks for watching.